and welcome to the Edition podcast. I'm Charlotte Henry, and quiet few days in the world of Hollywood and media. So luckily, Sean Mcnulty from The Ankler, we don't have anything to discuss, do we?
No, exactly. I think we just, we can talk about the weather, we can talk about some sports, whatever, Premier League, whatever. You got any hot takes?
Talk sports. Yeah, are the Yankees going to get over the line this year? We could do loads of,
World Baseball Classic. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. That's been quite fun. But we're discussing this on Monday, 16th of March, which is mere hours after everyone staggered home from the Oscars after parties. So, Sean McNulty, did you get your dinner jacket on? Go to any good parties?
No, I was counting ads. So my ritual is to watch the whole show, and not flip off to go watch something else, and see who's buying ads in the show, what Disney's advertising, which I put a wrap up in the Wake Up last night to kind of see, what gets prioritized, what doesn't get prioritized, and where the where their mouth is. It's a $2 million average, ad buy for 30 seconds there. So kind of seeing who was spending the money last night.
And who was it? What did you notice? Break it out for some listeners.
It baffles me it shouldn't baffle me every year, but Hollywood doesn't show up to advertise on their biggest night. This is the biggest single audience Hollywood and the movie business specifically gets every year. And we had one 15-second ad for a movie that wasn't a Disney or Disney Fox property, which is it airs on ABC here, and Hulu. So that's kind of in-house ad time. Nothing. We are 6 weeks out from the start of the biggest season of the year for the movie business and the summer movie season, and crickets. And it baffles me that you have, we'll see what the final numbers are, but generally 19, 20 million people tuning in who presumably love movies and love going movie stars, and you give nothing to get them psyched for the big season ahead. It just, so that's that. I always kind of tune in to see, like, will anybody show up this year? And it's always generally no. And we had Mandalorian and Grogu, of course, that's a Disney ad, and we had the Devil Wears Prada that also wisely showed up, and we had Anna Wintour last night on stage with Anne Hathaway, which was kind of fun on the show for a little subtle plug. We had Baby Yoda in the audience, these things which will go away. Yes, things that will go away when it goes to YouTube in 2029. So we'll see. Have to pay for that stuff. We'll see what the changes are with that when it comes into play in a few years.
But that seems bizarre to me that movie makers don't want to advertise in front of people that love movies.
Yeah, unless there's something at Disney. But, again, Amazon did buy a 15-second ad for Project Hail Mary, which is opening on Friday here in the States. Mm-hmm. I just, there's probably a rationale behind it that somebody's could give you about this, but I can't figure out what that would be that you don't want to take advantage of this. We have a Dune 3 trailer premiere coming, I think, later this afternoon. I'm like, prestigious director Denis Villeneuve. We have an Oscar nominee, pretty popular Zendaya franchise in there. And couldn't have just taken that as to watch the Dune trailer in the Oscars, something to get people hyped, an audience that is not all these things that make no sense, Charlotte. So that's where my point of view comes in. Then there's the fashion and things like that, which other people can pontificate about, certainly.
Oh, no, I like your fashion. I want your fashion tape.
You do not. Trust me.
This is why you're here this week.
If you're on video, you don't need my fashion tips. That's pretty obvious. So, yes, exactly.
Oh, dear. But there was quite a lot of storylines that came out of the night. I want to focus on the big things, which is Matt Berry's voice.
That was a fun little aside.
Well, we're obviously pretty aware of it here in the UK.
He was doing it from London, apparently, so that is also
wonderful
technological feat there.
Yeah, we've had the Mighty Boosh. I think he did. See the IT Crowd. Okay. All these shows that I've watched, but yeah, it's pretty magnificent, isn't it?
Yeah, it was a fun aside. I think he did a great job having a little fun with Conan there.
I have also seen supercuts of just Matt Berry saying stuff.
I'm sure it's quite a rabbit hole you can go into on the illustrious YouTube if you want to.
No, it was.
Yeah.
Yes, I was right, by the way. I knew I wasn't going mad. The IT Crowd, the Mighty Boosh, and a bunch of other stuff as well. But those are my two personal favourite Matt Berry moments. So how did the show go over? Because I feel like people have kind of, every year, and I think you've been on this show before discussing it with me, every year everyone's like, no one cares about the Oscars. It's over. The whole thing is over. Who cares? The jokes are late. Blah, 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 blah. Here's Conan O'Brien.
Yeah, I
What's
mean,
the vibe?
sure. The show starts at 7 o'clock here in New York, which is a different. That's been a past couple of years now. There's been a shift that was forever at 8 p.m. Eastern time. So, to my clock, by the time from Conan walking out, or the Conan coming up in his great weapons satire video to open up the show, which I thought was fantastic, to the end final credits, it was the 3 hours and I think 44 minutes. That's the appropriate facial reaction, Charlotte, to that.
If you're listening if you're just listening, jump to YouTube.
Jump to YouTube real quick. Yes, exactly. That is the correct facial expression to react to that stat. Which is the thing I think you're talking about. It's just like, it's overstuffed. There's things that are in there that, the thing that always astounds me, and I'm not going to be the only, person who has said this or will say this, is, this is ostensibly to honor the artists. That is the center of this evening, is to award, honor the winners of these achievements. And perennially, the constant task of the show is to get them off the stage. There's a very horrific, just a bad look in the best song winner last night, which went to, Golden from K-Pop Demon Hunters, just blatantly cut this guy off after one, and I'm like, this is K-Pop Demon Hunters, arguably the most popular film in that entire show. From an audience, point of view, and you cut that one off, and and those are the maddening things that kind of happen every year, and to your point, it becomes a grist mill to kind of just like go and things to talk about it, but it's and then then there's just a minute and 40 seconds of like stilted presenter talk that is not needed, and it's more misses than hits, in terms of how that stuff comes across. So all these choices, Charlotte, that go into the show. But the in memoriam, I think, across the board was lauded, and rightfully so. Mm-hmm. I thought it really stood out last night. Usually a segment, that is in every award show. Always is a nice moment of reflection, but, we lost a lot of really, really big names this year in movie business. So that was incredibly well handled, I thought, or well presented, I should say. There were good moments, but again, how the Oscars or the Academy chooses to use their time in this show still will confound people, and we'll see if it manifests in the ratings or not.
You've kind of led me to something I was going to maybe avoid.
Okay.
But it's irritated me.
Lay it out.
I've seen lots of clips.
All right.
I don't care what actor XYZ thinks about World Affair XYZ. Thank your partner. Thank the cast and crew. Have a nice cry. Move on. Yeah,
it's I don't know that there's. I don't know what I was expecting, Charlotte. You could have told me it would have been full of it last night, or none of it. I don't think it was predominant, certainly. And there was a documentary which was about Russia and Putin. So certainly you're going to have those categories where the films, there's a school shooting documentary about parents who lost kids. So you're going to have those elements and those categories come up, and rightfully so. And I thought those speeches were pretty well handled, in terms of how it presented it. But then you get other, just declarations of things by a few actors during the show. It's Hollywood, it does define the free speech we enjoy here, and I do, whether you scoff at it or don't, and I get it, but I will defend the right for anybody to you want to use your time like that. That is your right to do it, and I'm happy to see you do it. Does it make a more popular response to the show? Does it help the show? You can argue those things. People are not here for that kind of thing, so.
Yeah, look, I don't want to go full shut up and dribble, but
yeah, there is, yeah.
You are not a global affairs expert.
Yeah, that's there's certainly an element of well, what are you gonna okay, are you gonna stand up? Are you not gonna work with production companies or studios that don't align with your views? You're not taking checks from people. How far are you not going with this?
We're coming to that. We'll be coming to that later.
You can take this to an nth degree here, where put your money where your mouth is if you really believe in this stuff. And some people do. I don't say that they don't, but that's also something to kind of keep an eye on in terms of careers and how that goes.
If people were not allowed to do it, could we go from 3 hours 44 to 44 minutes?
Yeah, but I don't think it was. It wasn't, as I put it, wasn't that dominant of like, oh my God, this is going on and on about like, it was. I thought it was. Yes, there were moments, but it wasn't like we get it, or a thing that dominated the theme of the show per se. It wasn't my takeaway from the show. I'll put it that way. Of the best or the
Fair
moments
enough.
that stood out the most. I'll say that.
No,
much.
that's totally fair enough. I actually think I've seen some stuff from the red carpet, which actually is more of that kind of thing. And
I would think so. Yeah.
So maybe I'm being a bit mean.
Yeah, and I did not watch. To be clear, I did not watch the red carpet. I just watched the show, so I didn't see all the preamble.
You had some other things to do in your day.
I had
your Sunday.
Somehow my Sunday. Yeah. Well, I had to clear out 4 hours of my schedule, so I knew I had to get everything else done beforehand. So I couldn't leave in that
Sunday
time.
in New York, there were things to do.
There were things going on the weekend. Yes, exactly.
Very good. Let's actually talk about the people that won stuff and didn't win stuff. For you, were there any great shocks in any of this? Let's just do shall I do the big hitters quickly? Best Picture, One Battle After Another. Best Actress, Jessie Buckley for Hamnet. Best Actor was Michael B. Jordan in Sinners. Best Supporting Actress, Amy Madigan for Weapons. Best Supporting Actor, Sean Penn for One Battle After Another. And Best Director, Paul Thomas Anderson for One Battle After Another. Those are the big ones. Any shocks in there? Sinners I thought was going to clear the board. That was the story and the narrative I was hearing before. It's only Michael B. Jordan, right, that won one of the big 6 or whatever it is, 7 awards.
Yeah, Coogler won for screenplay, so you could put that in. And it won for cinematography, which was probably, if among the punditry, that seemed to be the one that was a mild surprise. Not that Sinners is a beautiful movie, but... Yeah. So that it did win in other categories. Again, maybe not the top 5, big 6, whatever you want to call them, but certainly the next, tier
so best
of
original
awards
screenplay,
everywhere.
As you say, is Ryan Coogler for Sinners, and then as it happened, One Battle After Another was best adapted screenplay.
Right. Yep.
If you care about the score, which I'm a bit of a music nerd, so I do. That was also went to Sinners, as did, as you say, cinematography from Auto Gerard Akapor.
Yeah, so it had a good presence in the show. It wasn't like, it got blanked or something like that, which...
After getting the most nominations ever, right?
Right. So, I get it, and it's like I was probably, if you asked me what I was rooting for, Best Picture to win, and I could see that scenario groundswell of it was the more popular movie overall, et cetera, but, One Battle was winning everything leading up to it, so there wasn't like in terms of the best picture of all the PGA and all the all the other things that preceded it, Golden Globes, etc. So not a total surprise, but if you look at the the Kalshi odds, the Polymarket odds, all those actor winners there was not a surprise in the bunch as far as I saw there. So not to say that's boring per se, that all deserved it, but there was no real like, oh my God, this was unexpected kind of thing. Even Amy Madigan
there was no rows. Because interesting, Apple got in there as well into the Best Picture nominations for F1 the movie, which is quite a big deal for them.
Yeah, and they won on I think some editing and sound, which fantastic, well-deserved awards for sure.
Yeah, and it's quite a big deal for them. Well, I'll talk about this with Chuck Jordan when we next do TV Plus talk. But so there was quite a lot there. Were you surprised Marty Supreme didn't get any? There was such talk about it earlier, a few months ago, wasn't there?
Yeah, and it did very, very well at the box office, and that was a big thing.
Yeah, exactly.
This movie, so it got up to almost or 100 million-ish. So yes and no.
Continue to do well on streaming.
It'll hit. It's going to be on HBO Max here. I'm not sure where it'll be elsewhere in the world, but it was the Chalamet show, and he kind of by most accounts not flubbed it, but certainly was just like, well, I don't know that you landed this plane. Obviously, he's been lauded before, so I don't, it is what it is. But he certainly had more heat in December and early January, Charlotte. I think you're 100% right about, oh my God, this performance is amazing.
Like there was, either side of Christmas, it was all anyone was talking about.
Yeah. And, his competition had come out in April and September. So he was the new, he had that momentum going into, the heart of Oscar season, if you will, compared to the competition, certainly for Sinners, which, again, was an April release last year. So that's the only real surprise. I don't know that anything else in a category would have been, the Safdies and certainly maybe some more costume or, cinematography stuff. But I don't know that it wasn't winning the awards, the other precursor awards. Sure. So I don't know that it was like a big surprise not to be winning there at all during the night.
Couple of other Oscars points I want to pick up with you. There was a new category this year for the first time in a while for casting. I've done a bit of reading into this. Amazing, I do actually sometimes prepare for the show.
There you go.
And my understanding was this has been something that the industry had been pushing for a while, for recognition in this space. Because, in Hollywood, having a good cast on a project is a really big deal.
Yeah, it's kind of a hidden role in a sense. We know casting directors exist, et cetera, but the importance of really having a real voice in the room to advocate for a casting in movies, I thought a lot of elements go into the success of a film, but you can see somebody in the wrong role can entirely ruin an otherwise good movie, yeah, exactly. So someone like Chase Infinity in One Battle, like that's a big bet on and on. It was her first, feature, leading role. So it's like, all right, that's so you're putting that is a casting director seeing someone, something in someone and putting their, reputation or their whatever you want to call it, on the line with the studio, with the director, with even the woman who won was just like, I know some of you departments, kind of hate me sometimes because I'm really involved in these other aspects. It's not just like, looking at headshots and talking to somebody in a room with a camcorder kind of thing, or even now it's, over Zoom or whatever it might be. So even that's kind of out the board. There's been a lot of advocacy to, reward this, everything else has between costume and, cinematography and these other categories have recognition. Casting never did, which is a major component. If you watch the credits of any film, the casting director is one of the lead credits on it and was never recognized by the Academy. So nice to see. I thought the speech was very good.
I was slightly surprised when I heard it hadn't been recognized because I don't see that it's less important than things like costume, hair and makeup, as you say, cinematography. Yeah. A couple of other bits. There was quite a dramatic moment, wasn't there, when there was a tie for the first time in forever. That was in the best live action short. The singers and two people exchanging saliva. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about that? No, I don't. I'm quite worried what a live action short with that title would contain. But anyway, they tied, and this hadn't happened for a long while.
Yeah, it's pretty rare to see this. I thought Kumail Nanjiani, who was the presenter, handled it rather well and having some fun with it. That was a good person to have, on their feet to handle that moment. And the irony
he did very well. He was like, "No, I'm not joking."
Exactly, and the irony of having two speeches for the best short category, things like that. Just to point out. A slight fun. It'll be a fun fact in Oscar history kind of moment, certainly. But added one more speech to the night. But that's it is what it is.
I always am interested, as you know, in the streaming element to this. And it was a huge deal. I put this in my book. I put this in Streaming Wars when Apple beat Netflix. They were when they did. It was Best Picture that Apple won, wasn't it?
Coda, yeah. Mm-hmm.
For Coda, exactly. And we can debate whether that was an actual Apple movie or not because they picked it up at Cannes, but they claimed the credit.
They get the
for
points.
it.
They get the points.
They get the points, and it was a huge deal because Netflix had wanted that for years, and Apple became the first streamer to pick up that prestigious award. How did the streamers perform this year, do you think?
Netflix Frankenstein won a lot of those awards we just mentioned. The costume and those kinds of
long list best
production
costume,
awards, if you will. So
best makeup, best costume.
Yeah, so they had a presence, in the show. It was really just in those categories. Train Dreams was nominated for a lot. I don't think it won any. I don't believe. Well, I love that movie. I thought was great too. Another great job. But they also bought that movie. That wasn't an in-house movie for them either. Train Dreams, that is. Frankenstein was produced there. The saga continues. It's Amazon,
and they tightened the rules about actual cinematic windows, haven't they? You've got to be
they've
in
added a few
theatre.
things, nothing that's insurmountable. You had to go in a few more cities and things like that. It wasn't anything that like, oh my God, it's going to be so, especially for a company with the pockets of these, the tech streamers, that's not a real big deal.
They'll be okay.
Yeah, but Amazon had nothing on the table this year. Said F1, over at Apple had a couple of wins, and then so they had a presence, but certainly were not. I mean, it was Warner Brothers year overall, but certainly was there was not a last year. Emilia Perez was a big movie going into the show at least. So it's that Netflix had a far bigger presence last year. Again, a film they acquired, out of Cannes the year before. So. It still means something to Netflix. These films are not heavily watched. I do, break down the film chart every week in the Wake Up, and they're minimal, viewership in terms of compared to the Rips of the world or people we meet on vacation or name other Netflix films that are widely watched. So it's a business they like being in. Again, that's for the kind of the prestige, and everybody, my colleague Richard Rushfield will say everybody comes into Hollywood to literally be at this show and to win awards, is a big part of the reason why anybody buys a studio. So they're still playing. They haven't abandoned it. Amazon, you could argue, never really, kind of stepped their toe in it for a while, but they really haven't been a major player in this field. I guess that's the only real outlier, Charlotte, of the big tech players you could probably make a case for.
Yeah. You mentioned Warner Brothers Discovery. That's because you're a pro, because it's what we're going to discuss next. I just want to mention Macpaw, who are supporting this show with their product Clean My Mac. I'm thrilled they're supporting the show, not least because I've used the product for years. Clean My Mac is your ultimate solution for Mac control and care, notarized by Apple and meticulously crafted by Macpaw, a leading macOS and iOS software development company. It offers features including Cloud Cleanup, which connects to your iCloud, OneDrive and Google Drive accounts, scanning to find large space wasters. This happens locally on your Mac, so your data stays safe. There is also the Cleanup and My Clutter features and the new Activity tool, which shows how much space you've reclaimed over time and how much manual effort you've avoided. Clean My Mac is the quiet presence that makes creativity uninterrupted, removing the friction that breaks momentum. As I say, I've used the product myself to keep machines going longer and work without interruption, all with very little effort. Get tidy today, try 7 days free, and use my code EDITION for 20% off at clnmy.com/edition. That's clnmy.com/edition, all uppercase. Thanks to Clean My Mac from Macpaw for supporting the show. And now I'm here with Sean Mcnulty. You mentioned just before I was talking about Clean My Mac, all about Warner Brothers Discovery. You mentioned it. We finally got, and we mentioned Netflix as well, and we finally got to the end of the saga, please, haven't we? Thank you.
Oh, no.
Sean.
End of the saga? What are you talking about?
Sean. We know now that it's going to Paramount. We know it's not going to Netflix, right?
Unless the government has something, or the EU over there has something to say about it.
We're not in the EU anymore.
Well, I mean, over there, across the pond over there. So,
This side of the pond,
yes,
sadly.
exactly. So, so I would say, yes, all signs point to yes, for a deal to go through, but there's a lot of, there's still rumblings out there, Charlotte. Nothing has materialized at this point. Even the individual states here, California in particular, the Attorney General has, made some statements that there may be challenges coming into it. So not again, there hasn't been a shareholder vote, things like that. So there are steps in the process is what I'm alluding to, and that this isn't a done deal. It's not done until you get the keys, so we'll see. But
don't do this to me, Sean. I can't write anymore.
I'm the one that has to sit here and really live with it, on a day-to-day basis for another. I mean, they say, they're saying this deal will close.
I've written many newsletters about it. I can't do anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad to have a nice break for a couple of weeks here and talk about the Oscars and things like that. But end of September is what they've said this deal will close by. So about 6 months. 6 months, if they're on deadline, so we'll see.
Yeah. One of the key parts of the row is CNN and CBS News, which might end up as part of the same thing. What does that happen? And, of course, this means people are talking about Barry Weiss. Now, I can't quite work out what offends people about the gay, Jewish, centre-right, rich journalist. But something seems to, Sean.
Yeah, not a favorite of the media community. We'll put it that way, especially here in New York.
As I say, I just can't work out why that might be.
It's tough or someone who has zero broadcast television experience taking over a broadcast news division and now potentially the world's largest, arguably news service, or at least in TV, especially from a news gathering capacity, point of view and reach 100% in CNN. So you're putting all this under the purview of someone who has had zero experience with any of this. So I take more offense from a managerial point of view than any ideological point of view. I think it's very important, but I also just think if you've ever worked inside of a company, and so I've spent many years inside of HBO and Time Warner, and when you have a new management coming in who has no idea what they're talking about, that's always terrible for morale. And it thinks they has these new ideas that's going to change the business. Now we're, I guess we're 3 months into the new CBS Evening News revamp, and I've seen zero mention of this show. I'm sure it's still in the basement in the ratings. All these things. What could we do to change the 6:30 p.m. news at night? And it's like, what year are you living in? This is not how news. And to her point, accolade, she's like, we need to be more digital. We need to break out of it. But
she's surely right about that.
And and 100%. CNN is the same issue. Listen, these are two declining assets. They're combining them together.
If
That's
you
great.
ask Mark Thompson,
yes,
who,
he's the head of CNN.
Yeah, the head of CNN. Okay, he had BBC experience, but then he was at the New York Times. He'd make similar points about shaking things up, about going digital. Yeah.
There might not be an answer, is the thing. And Mark's a smart guy. Mark was one of the leaders that turned around, set the fortunes for the New York Times. Like, he was the guy who put the paywall in and put big moves that we kind of take for granted at this point. But without that, you can't imagine the Times would be probably in a very perilous position if they hadn't made those decisions, almost 10, 15 years ago at this point. So he's been there to be that transition. That was more print newspaper to digital.
Right.
And now he's at this, beyond the cusp of linear television to digital, which is, way beyond the horses out of the barn at this point about that. But they launched CNN D2C subscriber product. I've seen zero stats made for it in terms of subscribers or revenue. Who's paying for it? It took a long
time to get there.
And it took, they had the CNN Plus debacle, which came and went, and that kind of, the change in management. With Chris Licht, and then that's what brought Mark in. So they had some, this is the 2020s, as this was, so like time waits for no man in this. The bleed of cable is not stopping just because you can't get your act together in a certain amount of time. So, yeah, but what, who's paying for new? Who's paying for this stuff? The CNN audience and all the cable networks, it's, the median age is, 68, 69 years old. And it's like, you're going to get 18-year-olds to pay for news. I don't, what's the business model out of this? The cable model is a very, very lucrative model for many years, and it's the chances of replicating that money in digital are very slim. Jeff Zucker, famously the former head of CNN, was said, you're trading, linear dollars for, digital dimes, I think was his analogy on it. And, when you want to pay Anderson Cooper several $1 million a year and his other, names, that's linear money that's supporting that. That is not CNN.com, and it's not CNN streaming service. It's not that kind
Anderson
of math
Cooper,
to it.
who left CBS 60 Minutes.
Yes, so he is CNN only. He was spending more time with his family, Charlotte. So that was literally, I think, the line that was put out there. So, but now he'll be working back under CBS News. So we'll see how that goes.
Let's talk. We could talk about this. I could chat about the sort of Barry Weiss obsession for a long time, but I'll resist.
Okay.
What else do you think is significant about this deal? So I heard. Didn't Paramount say they put out 30 movies a year?
Yeah, so Ellison's now been on the record several times saying that Paramount and Warner Brothers, so Warner Brothers this is under Mike and Pam, this is of the Sinners in One Battle. They both put those movies out last year. Will combine to put out 15 theatrical films a year. So they're at Paramount.
Where did the 30 come from?
So it's roughly 14 from Warner, 16 from Paramount is what he's kind of breaking it down at this point. That mix will evolve over time, obviously, but he said, 30 movies a year. Paramount hasn't put 10 movies out in a year, and I can't even remember. So he's guaranteeing 16 this year. I think they have, I don't say 8 or 9 or dated, so far. So they got to double their slate. We're here in March. I'm like, all right, you're going to be jam-packing that last second half of the year here with new movies, which is great. I'm not saying he won't, and, it's not impossible to do. It's just like, all right, you have a system built. Like, I'm talking marketing, distribution, your in-house staff to service 8, 9 movies, theatrical movies a year. You're now going to be doing 16 this year, and, and look, that maybe that's more jobs. Maybe that, we will see. But he's been, he said it. He's definitely on the record about it, and we'll see if the numbers come through. Warner's has been ramping up and hiring, and to get to a higher level, maybe we're like 12 to 14. So that one, if it continues as is, sure, they can hit that number, and it will be great for the movie business, in a sense, to have other products out there. The films have to make money. So you could put, they have 2 years of bombs of 30 years of movies a year, and you'd be like, oh, we're losing a lot of money. We're going to be cutting back, So listen, the movie business is always a very fluid thing, Charlotte. But we also have Universal Pictures,
isn't it just?
Now changing course to put their films in theaters for 45 days starting next year exclusively. So they were famously the studio that had the shortest theatrical windows for the 2020s since COVID, and that's going to be a big shift also. So I broke this down in the Wake Up last week, and I'm maybe a little more optimistic about this, and I can see, whenever I talk about this, I see the look of like, really, bro, in people's faces. But
I am giving you a distinct.
A little, I get, listen, when I write it in the newsletter, I can feel it already, but I just see all right, and I'm a believer in the movie business, and I will put that on the record as that's my bias toward it. But windows are back. The product, how much product we're back. You have Amazon MGM this year filling that extra studio slot. They're targeting about 13 films, I think, this year, something like that so far. So you have a new studio, ostensibly, that was not there. They were doing a handful of films a year, previously. So again, getting the habit back of moviegoers, of just like making moviegoing an activity that you'll have consistent product, new product, and variety products coming, to theaters all the time, to different audiences. Maybe we'll even get some comedy, Charlotte. I'm still holding on hope for that one. So
I love a comedy. I'm looking forward to all the Oracle AI produced movies.
We'll see. AI is still this, thing out there. I understand it's coming. I understand the tech of it. I just hope that, the audiences will tell you if the films feel, overly AI'd and produced and just not shot in any semblance of a real world and just like don't buy it anymore, they will not come to the movies. So the proof's in the audiences.
What are the other bits? We've discussed the news element, we've discussed the movie element, which are, to me, are the two big things in this merger. What other bits will you be keeping an eye on as this goes forward?
The job loss is just...
Yeah.
That's the lead for me. Honestly, and all these things you're talking about when you're combining CBS News and CNN, it's like, well, you're combining resources, That
means people losing their jobs.
Yes, exactly. So the duplicative nature of this deal, the only thing that Warner Bros. Discovery does not have, that Paramount doesn't have, is a broadcast network. So like if you work at CBS, you're probably relatively safe because there's no, other broadcast network coming into it, but you're combining 2 large groups of cable TV networks. You're combining 2 TV production studios. You are combining 2 movie studios. You're combining 2 streamers. This is the Noah's Ark, thing. It's like, well, we don't need 2 of you, so which one are you keeping of these 2 executives kind of thing? Could be a lot of that. They have a lot of cost cuts, a lot of promised cost savings, I should say, promised in this deal. That is how you get cost savings. I know they've said the majority will not be, but when you're talking about at least $6 billion of cost savings, that's a minority would be, you could have $2.5 billion in layoff costs and still not be the majority of the cost savings. Like, understand the language that's being put out there. Like, well, it wasn't the majority, but you want to look at what $2.5 billion of layoffs look like. Your head's going to spin. So I think the combined employment is somewhere around 55,000 people globally. So in a year's time, maybe 12 to 18 months, we will see what that number nets out to. But that's going to be we've seen a lot of layoffs, Charlotte. This isn't sadly anything new for the past 3 years.
Well, you and I,
we've talked about on this podcast.
Regular times. You telling me about what was happening with the strikes, which is ultimately about, one of the key things was layoffs, and the use
coincided.
Of
Yeah.
exactly. So it'll be interesting to see what are those issues this deal picks up as well.
Yeah, we are in the middle of guild negotiations here in Hollywood. I should say.
Are we back?
Yeah, but we're a lot more optimistic this time. SAG just finished up. Well, they just ended. WGA starts today. Again, we're recording on Monday. So SAG reportedly got close. It's been pretty mum, which is also good. There's not a lot of leaks, which also signed. Last time it was just Leak Central. So it seems like calmer heads are prevailing, Charlotte, so far. We shall see. We have a ways to go. This will extend into June between the three guilds, these talks. So we'll see how the WGA does here in the next, I think, 4 to 6 weeks is their window. So we shall see. But keep a good thought, Charlotte.
Oh, I'm so excited to have you back in 4 to 6 weeks discussing some more Hollywood strikes. Sean Mcnulty from The Wake Up from The Ankler. I'm so pleased to have you here. Tell people where they can keep up with all the great work you do.
Yeah, so you can subscribe to The Ankler over at theankler.com. You can follow on the socials, very active on Instagram, particularly, at The Ankler is the handle there. You can find me on LinkedIn. It seems I'm the old LinkedIn guy at the Ankler, so I'm Sean, Sean, Mcnulty. On LinkedIn, you can find me there to connect and say hi.
And, of course, The Ankler has a great podcast as well.
We do have a podcast, yes, in our world. So The Ankler Agenda, hosted by Elaine Lowe. I am on that as well. You can subscribe to that where you like. Just search for Ankler Agenda.
Great stuff. I'm at Charlotte A. Henry across the socials. If you're listening to this, I hope you'll subscribe to the newsletter at theedition.net. If not, what are you doing? Head over there, theedition.net, for blog posts, podcasts, and newsletter subscriptions. Sean, thank you once again for being on the show, and I'll see you all next week.